Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. This is the second last day of July, but it's only the second day of summer for Calgary. Just a reminder, if you want to look and see some fun things, look the last 2 years in a row. The Weather Network every winter puts out a prediction, a dire one. Calgary and southern Alberta are in for desert-like conditions, drought, famine. It's going to be awful. It's like a biblical plague. They've been dead wrong 2 years in a row. We got wet, cold spring, and then this year, wet, cold summer. Either way, just want to take that shot at the climate alarmists that they can't even predict 5 days out. Why do you take any of their crap seriously when they're trying to guess 3 months ahead? Either way, we got a good show coming up ahead of us here. Dan McTeague is going to be on. He's the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy, and I love having him on. It's always a good conversation. He's one of the ones from back in the days when liberals were still somewhat sane. I mean, they were liberals, but the Chrétien liberals were a world different than the liberals we get to enjoy today. And we'll talk about where the direction of the Carney government is going on things. We'll be checking in with Dave on some news updates pretty soon. Lots going on out there. And let's start. Also, we've got an event coming up, and they're going to be asking the question, what is the West's role in Canada? So don't miss this year's Canada's Strong and Free Networking Conference. It's going to be in Calgary, September 5th and 6th. They got speakers like Tristan Hopper, Lord Conrad Black, Premier Smith, and Preston Manning. There's early bird rates till August 4th. So, hey, get out there, reserve your tickets today, save a few bucks. Canada Strong and Free .network. Check it out, guys. You can't beat that theme, can you? All right, let's get on with what I'm going to get on about today. Junkies. Yes, junkie. It's a harsh term, and that's why I'm using it. It's purposeful because it represents a harsh reality, and I want to tear the sugar coating off of it. People addicted to substances who live on the streets of Canada are putting themselves and other citizens in danger every day. Activists and bureaucrats and politicians dancing around the problem using euphemisms, refusing to acknowledge the harm caused by unchecked addiction are killing people and making the catastrophe worse. I mean, unless the person's blind, they've noticed an explosion in the growth of street people in the last decade. We never used to see the types of street encampments or tent encampments have sprung up all over the place, and we never had to deal with the zombie-like groups of strung-out souls congregating at transit facilities and parks, alleys, schoolyards, every corner of the city centers. The vast majority of these people, and this is what we got to get down to, they're either addicts or suffering from mental health disorders or both. If we want to help these people, we got to begin by accepting what their conditions are. Civic politicians and their associated bureaucrats are the worst. They use every term they can to deny reality. People went from being called homeless to unwell to unhoused to my personal favorite, vulnerable people. Well, these vulnerable people stabbed people in 2 separate incidents at the same LRT station in Calgary last week. These vulnerable people have set brush fires at their encampments, and they have propane tanks there. They've also caused spikes in property crimes as they steal anything they can to feed their addiction, and they create a thriving market for organized crime as they consume illicit drugs. Vulnerable people indeed. Look, I don't want to crap on addicts here. The people on the streets need our compassion and they need our help. We have a social obligation to help the folks suffering out there, and funds directed towards addiction treatment and expanding long-term mental health facilities are dollars well spent. We won't be able to help them, though, if we keep pretending that addiction isn't a problem. It was maddening watching Calgary News this week as legacy outlets reported on a vandalism rampage committed by an addict where he did tens of thousands of dollars of damage to cars. And I watched them get a quote from an idiot advocate for the homeless talk about how this was an issue caused by high rents. I wish I was making this up. Look, the guy's an addict and he was nuts. He should be in an institution. He doesn't have a rental problem. The delusional dolts from the enablement cult have been blaming the explosion of crime and street person populations on everything from capitalism to racism to climate change, all while refusing to admit it's the damn addiction. A late-stage addict, whether it's fentanyl, meth, heroin, or crack, is incapable of finding a job or maintaining a home. They do indeed need to be taken from the streets if they're to be treated, but they aren't in any condition to live within any form of long-term housing unless they've been treated, despite what smooth-brained housing first activists claim. Another term that should be stricken from all public discourse is social disorder. The proper term is crime, and it's getting out of control. Hatchet attacks, robberies, and fentanyl dealing aren't a disorder issue. They're bloody crimes. Apologists for the havoc they have fostered in the streets through addiction enablement policies often try to blame citizens by saying it's a perception of unsafety. Really? You know, when people, a senior or a woman has to run the gauntlet of addicts in various states of frenzy just to get to work, It's more than just a perception of unsafety, and they shouldn't have to deal with it. In Nanaimo, the local government went full enablement ideology and managed to create one of the most dangerous small cities in Canada. While the city has a beautiful backdrop, it has become a dump. Because the fools in city administration felt the risk was only a perception issue, they allowed an addiction enablement facility to be set up next to their city hall. Now the imbeciles are calling for a fence to be built around City Hall because they're surrounded by out-of-control addicts and they feel unsafe. Maybe they just perceive it. Enablement advocates blame the deaths of addicts on what they call a toxic supply. They live in a mythical bubble state where they believe that addicts would be just fine if they could just get pure drugs. That's only those nasty additives the drug dealers put into the supply which kill people. Look, there's no such thing as a safe supply of meth, fentanyl, heroin, or crack for an addict. Addiction's a progressive condition causing addicts to continue to seek higher doses until they finally overdose and die. Speaking of that, the term's overdose. And even the most pure of drugs will cause it. The sound of sirens are ubiquitous. I don't know why I put those words in my own monologues. They just kill me. In urban areas, as ambulance constantly respond to overdoses. Meanwhile, people suffer and potentially die waiting emergency services and hospital spaces because they're tied up with addicts. The addiction epidemic's only going to get worse as authorities refuse to acknowledge the realities associated with it. If we do truly care about the addicts, we got to start speaking bluntly about it and deal with it directly, even if it means forcible confinement. It's a complex problem and won't be solved by simplistic souls who haven't the courage to call a junkie a junkie. No serious social problem has ever been solved with Pollyanna attitudes and euphemisms. So take that and put it in your crap pipe. Smoke it. How's it going, Dave?
That was a damn good round.
I was pissed off.
Was it ambiguous?
Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
I write that one often, but boy, I don't say it that often.
No, I know it is a weird one.
Yeah, I'm not going to write it so much for these monologues.
No, that was a good monologue. Well said.
But like I said, it just got me going on that newscast. They're talking, oh, well, this is due to lack of rent. The guy's a nut. He's out of control, and you're talking about rent control.
And it was good video, and one of the people who suffered was Councillor McLean.
Yes.
$4,000 damage to his vehicle
for the second time.
This addict. So, hey, I was thinking during your earlier statement, I should have been a meteorologist growing up.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be right. You really don't have to do anything. You look out the window, oh, it's going to be sunny. Board, yeah. How do you get a job? How do you keep a job when you're wrong most of the time?
Well, it's either that or become an elected official.
Yeah, I suppose 6-1, half a dozen as the other. So your face isn't covered with horrible boils. So I assume the honeybee milking went okay on the weekend.
It did, yes. We got a pretty good crop there, and I managed to suit up correctly. Last year, I got 4 stings for my troubles in one session, but. No, I went sting-free and got a hell of a lot of honey.
So were we talking gallons? I mean, I don't know. So
we got about 7 gallons. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And the bees don't get angry that you're taking the honey?
Oh, they get right pissed. But I get suited up. I avoid the stings when I can. And no, it went really well, actually. That's one thing with all this rain, the flowers and everything out there in the foothills where I am are something else. So during the dry days, the bees are quite happy. Until I come in and try and steal their honey.
And do they start making it again the next day, or do they sort of go on strike?
They're right back at it. They're good little winged slaves for me.
How many harvests do you do a year?
Well, I did a little one in spring just to get some rolling. Typically I would do 2 though. I'm gonna do one more probably in 3 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to the honey lip balm you're going to bring in.
I keep forgetting to. I got to bring a bunch of that in. Damn it. Okay, it's coming.
So yeah, another fun day in the news. We survived the tsunami. That was good fun last night. Top story at the moment is the electoral officer in Alberta has officially, whatever he does, released or declared the first petition, which I think, if you remember, was filed by that lunatic Fabio. Thomas Lukaszuk. Yeah, and there was a sort of stay in Canada petition. Do you vote for Alberta to stay in Canada? So that's official. They can now go out and collect signatures. I think they need 293,000.
Wasn't it higher for Fabio's because he filed before the change? Oh no, yeah, that's right. 295 is higher in his case. Yes.
So that's him knocking on a lot of doors. So.
Yeah, well, he's known for assailing seniors when he goes
exactly.
I'm not sure if he's the best man.
Yeah, residents of Edmonton, you might want to secure your doors and make sure it's not him knocking. The Liberals are apparently hosting a cabinet meeting today, virtually, to discuss recognizing Palestine as a state.
Right. So
right.
Whoever sees virtue signaling.
You got to reward those Hamas terrorists.
Sure, and it just tells those countries, if you slaughter and rape enough people, liberal countries will give you your own state.
So they only killed about 1,100, 1,200. I mean, come on. Worst day since the Holocaust.
Drop in the bucket.
Well, France was the first to capitulate, which they usually do. And then England, so Great Britain followed yesterday. So there is a sort of motion going that way. So, but of course, Donald Trump will come along, and as he already says, no, not a chance. So
yeah, there's again many things I take issue with Trump on, but at least on that one, I mean, they've got the veto authority at the UN, so Canada and France can prance around and do whatever stupid virtue signaling they like. They're not going to get declared by the UN anyways.
No, so that's fun and game. Some emotional scenes in Birmingham, England today as Ozzy Osbourne did his final tour of the city, casket with his family, Sharon and the kids walking behind, crying, tens of thousands of people lining the street there. A good story from our friends at Blacklock's Reporter. They've discovered 22 foreign diplomats, Canadian diplomats, have been fired for criminal activity, like, inflating their, taking bribes and stealing stuff and all that sort of stuff. So
I'm not a lawyer, but usually doesn't it work when you commit criminal activity, you get charged with a crime?
Well, that is normally the case, but none of these cases have been sent to the police.
Oh, well, dear. So
I think
I imagine they probably got a severance package in that.
They probably did get a severance package, but Global Affairs is working very hard to recover the lost and stolen funds.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure
certainly hold my breath on not seeing that.
That'll work. So, and Friday's the big day, the big deadline day for tariffs. Trump has said, came out today, say no extension for Canada. And I get the sense he's going to hammer us on Friday.
Probably, but you never know. I mean, this is what
elbows up.
Yeah, elbows up. I mean, that's what he likes doing, though, is waiting until 11:59 on Thursday. Maybe we'll give it a month. I mean, I don't. Neither would surprise me.
I get the sense he's upset with us.
Well, he's always upset with us.
Yeah, and I think he put some softwood lumber tariffs on this week. I think 26%. So I think the hammer's going to fall on Friday, but we shall see. I can be wrong occasionally.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's trying to predict what Trump might do is a tough game at the best. I mean, better make some football predictions if you can figure out what he's going to be up to. Well, you missed out on the big celebrity news. We might have a new celebrity couple.
Oh, yes. Wasn't that exciting? Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau.
Oh, there's a meeting of the minds.
Yes. Yeah. Spotted, she was having a concert in Montreal and spotted having dinner, and then they went for drinks on a terrace. So, she's newly divorced from Orlando Bloom, and he's been separated a while now from Sophie. So who knows? Stranger things have happened.
As long as they don't reproduce. Otherwise he's single. He's going, go ahead. Go with Katie. Do your thing.
Yeah. I think probably Katie was driving around Canada and saw all those F. Trudeau signs.
No.
And then she thought, okay, I'll give it a go.
Well, then if Orlando ever meets Trudeau, he can use that classic old line, how do I taste?
Yes.
Yes, see if we can get us some CRTC complaints.
There you go. That one's on you, buddy.
All right. Well, I'll leave it on that vile note and let you get back to the newsroom.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Have a great show.
Yeah, thank you. That is our news editor, Dave Naylor. And there's Dave behind me with his lunch right on cue. Oh, no, he's just opening his laptop today. Either way, the reason we have all that news going, all that coverage, guys, is because you guys have been subscribing. We don't take tax dollars. We are independent, just like Blacklock's Reporter, who was just mentioned recently. So get on there, guys. $10 a month, $100 for a year. Come on, it's just like an old newspaper subscription. It keeps us rolling, keeps us staffed, and keeps these shows on the go. So if you haven't got a subscription yet, get on there. And if you already have, really, thank you. I do appreciate it. All right, what do we got looking in the comments? Just much of the same. Good to see you all checking in. This is, for those watching it live, use that chat with things, keep things civil. That's all. I am going to have Mr. McTeague on, but it's going to be at 12:30 due to timing with things. So I'll do my rambling on things until then. The schedule's a little different today. So in Alberta, the independence movement, the petitioning, the stuff going on, there's a lot happening. So yeah, they've given a full approval from the elections chief electoral officer in Alberta to Thomas Lukaszik's stupid petition put forth. And I say stupid in that it's petitioning to hold a referendum about nothing. It's holding to have a referendum just saying, yes, we love Canada. Well, good for you. But nothing will change. Nothing will change either way you vote on that referendum. Why use the electoral system to have what's essentially a poll? But it doesn't matter. That is what the electoral officer has felt is fit to potentially put forth for a referendum. I doubt Lukasik is going to really get, because it's really about nothing, as Dave said, close to 300,000 signatures that are going to be required to get that on a ballot for a referendum. And I keep reminding people of that. If they think it's that easy to get something into a referendum, this is a real petition, a real one, on paper, witnessed, name, phone number, address, signature. And the address has to be the home address. You can't use a mailing address. Hundreds of thousands of them, and he has 90 days to get them. Very, very unlikely. Now, the one put forth, though, by the Alberta Prosperity Project is a whole different ball of wax. That one is saying, do you want Alberta to become a complete sovereign state and leave Confederation? I'm paraphrasing, but it's a straightforward question. But now the Alberta electoral officer has said, we've got to put that question to the King's Court as a judge to rule on whether or not it's constitutional. Well, hold on a minute. What? Where does that come from? Look, it's a straightforward question asking whether we want to stay or not. It's based on the Clarity Act. The Clarity Act went all the way through the Supreme Court. This has already been settled. And you think that now we have to beg the court for permission to ask a question on a referendum? The double standard is starting to get a little blatant there. What's interesting is Premier Smith and her Justice Minister have already spoken up to the electoral officers and hey, cut that out. That's not where this needs to go. You're there to, administer the votes in the elections, not to determine those sorts of things. Or I guess he's saying it's not his role to determine those sorts of things. That's why he feels he has to put it to the court. We can't hold referendums, and it's fair enough, on things according to the legislation, on anything that would violate the Constitution. If we wanted to hold, or the Charter for that matter, if we wanted to hold a referendum to, I don't know, make LGBTQ marriage illegal again, that would be a clear violation of the Charter, and it wouldn't be able to go to a question. That's fair enough. But this other one has already been covered. No, they're just dragging their heels. So they give the permission to a completely unserious question like Thomas Lukasik's question. And now they're going to try and drag it through the courts with the legitimate question. And I mean, most Albertans don't want to go at this point. I like to think that's going to change. But that's where it's got to be put to the voters. That's the only way to go. But to refuse to give or drag your heels or mess with the process, do you think, guys, that that's really going to reduce the independence movement, set it back? Is it going to cut away at the frustration? If you take away the democratic means and ability for people to get things done, that's what ends up leading to non-democratic efforts. No, I'm not saying it as a threat before some clown goes on along that. I'm just saying you can't cork the bottle and think the issue is going to go away. In fact, the best thing, it's funny, I give him credit because wherever he is, he's not stupid. And I had an Enchi. When this really first came about, what he did was daring Smith, saying, put it to a referendum right now. Let's do it right away. Let's get it ready to put it on the question next month. Because he knew that it wouldn't win. If you want to shut down the movement, hold a referendum and have it lose. And that indeed would put ice on it for some years. But to try and say, we're going to drag it out for what is it going to be now? Months, years, weeks, whatever it is, to go through the courts for us to get permission to ask the question, that is not going to reduce the movement. That's going to build more mistrust in the Federation and only make the movement stronger. Speaking of our Charter and Constitution and stupidity and judges, because they all kind of get bundled together quite often. A judge in Ontario just ruled today that bike lanes are a constitutional right. Apparently, this is how stupid the interpretation of our Constitution and Charter starts to get. This is where I really start to question the judiciary and just our entire system. It really do. I mean, so the battle's been going on. Look, ridiculous anti-automotive ideological nutcases have taken over city halls across the country. And one of their favorite ways to screw with cars is sticking a bunch of stupid bike lanes in to choke up the traffic. But, the way to deal with them, again, I actually wrote a monologue. I put a column on that. I think voters should just wake up and start firing these idiots. Chow in Toronto, Gondek in Calgary, Sohi in Edmonton. Instead, we got battles going on in Alberta with Devin Dreeshen, our transportation minister, battling with, I think he's meeting with Gondek today on that, about bike lanes in Calgary because it's interfering with traffic. So is it a provincial thing where transportation and traffic is their authority, or is it city thing because it's city streets? I don't know. They're going to fight it out. I think if we would just start firing those hammerheads in civic elections, we wouldn't have to deal with it. But either way, in Toronto, the bike lanes have gotten so stupid, and they are stupid, and they're underutilized, and they're seasonal. We aren't Amsterdam clowns. But Ford has taken that as something to take on, and he was talking about forcing the city to remove bike lanes. So it got taken to the courts because there's existing bike lanes he wanted to get rid of. It went to Ontario courts, and they ruled that it would violate the Constitution to remove them. What sort of ridiculous mental twisting did this judge have to take to determine a bike lane is a constitutional right? I mean, Kenzie Kraken, a commenter, saying, yeah, banking needs to be a constitutional right for these days. These selective rights that we get given in this increasingly authoritarian state, where Eva Chipiuk got debanked, Royal Bank shut down her accounts. She has to move them because she played with the wrong crowd, because she was a lawyer who represented freedom-minded people. I mean, banks, unfortunately, are something I consider a necessary evil in life. You can't get through modern life without a bank. You have to deal with them, kind of like insurance companies. I don't care for dealing with them. I can't stand them. You always feel like you're a supplicant, even though you're the customer. But because it's a necessity for you, there should be quite some stringent rules about what it'll take before being debanked. And there should, of course, never be an occasion where the government can reach into your accounts and steal it. But that very thing happened within Canada. Our courts don't seem to worry about those constitutional rights, those abilities, those freedoms. But they have found that bike lanes are a constitutional right. When I say online, it gets a lot of people all upset and whiny. When I say Canada is broken, this is why I say it, guys. It's broken. It's stupid. Speaking of my personal news, I might as well talk about it. That was covered in the Western Standard News a while back. I'm dealing with those charges that came because I shot a video on the Siksika Reserve in Alberta. And I'm fighting it. I'm fighting on my charter rights for free movement and free press. My court date's been set for the first court date on that anyways, October 16th. Maybe that'll probably get enough. You see, I would say normally that would be thrown out of court because it's a stupid charge and their own law is stupid. And you don't need to be a lawyer to realize that. It's just the local chief and council pretty upset that I showed that a First Nations band that got $1.2 billion from Justin Trudeau has everybody living in shacks and garbage for some reason. So people are kind of wondering where the money went. So rather than answer the question, they've charged me with trespassing for daring to drive on a public highway. And it was a highway, guys. And shoot video of the conditions on that reserve. So, now, I would have said with confidence that a judge will look at this and say, this is ridiculous. You guys can't do this. It's a public highway. Get over it. But then this is a world where judges consider bike lanes to be a constitutional right. So I kind of lose a little bit of confidence in where things might go with that. It's gets a little frightening. Speaking of free speech, free expression, here's the other one, right? That Christian worship band fella, whatever, Sean Foyt, whatever his name might be, he's been chased all over the place, right? Chased out of a national park on the East Coast. Now Winnipeg has refused to let him have a concert, it looks like. And Montreal, a church, got fined for having him perform inside it. Could you really imagine, say, if a performance was banned in a mosque and the mosque got fined? Of course not. They wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But the church got fined thousands for hosting this guy in Montreal, a private facility. Fined for hosting a Christian guy. Look, it's not my sort of thing. I wouldn't go to one of these, but that's the thing. I choose not to. It's not that hard. This should fall under free expression. This should fall under free speech. This is the sort of thing that are charter and constitutional rights, yet nobody seems to be standing up in our courts for this man's rights or the people who want to see him or want to listen to him. This country is getting so ass backwards, guys. It's frightening. But I believe he's going to be, this will be where the fun starts to really get going. He's going to be performing in Alberta, I think, on provincial property. And of course, the NDP is doing cartwheels and jumping up and down, very upset with it. Oh, too bad. But we'll see what kind of nutcase protesters or whatever else comes about from that. We really just, we've got to get what our rights are and our responsibilities are and get that sorted out. And I don't have faith that our current system can do so when we look at these things. That news story that Dave talked about. So 22 diplomats committing crimes. They're not named. They got fired. Being government employees, government appointees, they probably did get big severance packages. The rest of us in the real world, you do something like that, you get criminally charged. In Canada, it gets covered up. Speaking of us getting robbed, just another comment. Just to mention a commenter, Joe Mills, who pointed out, well, you know where some of that 1.2 billion is going? It's going to lawyers. Yeah, there is. It's called the Indian industry. There's a lot of people who make a heck of a lot of money out of the perpetual court challenges from the reserves, one way or another, up and down, all left, right, and center. And they're just bleeding it. My little case is another example of it. So let's talk about other big bloated institutions robbing Canadians. The CBC. Yeah, the state broadcaster, they get their, 1.3, 1.4 billion a year. Their market share during the news on evenings is down to less than 3%. Yeah, 97% of Canadians don't watch their crap, but 100% of Canadians get to pay for it. Well, it turns out they have almost 1,500 employees making six figures. Yeah, not a typo. 1,500 CBC employees making six figures to make broadcasts that nobody watches. There's where your money's going, guys. I'm sure they got some great severance packages as well. And of course, the bias at the CBC is just outrageous. We've seen that recently with that CBC anchor who quit. We've seen a few of them over the years who've left, and they've exposed it and said, yes, this is an ideological state broadcaster that is there to create a narrative, not report on things. If we must, and we don't need one, but if we must have a state broadcaster, if we must have a tax-funded broadcaster, it should be the most unbiased one possible. And it's not. It's the worst. CTV is working hard to come in on a close second, but CBC is just brutal. And yeah, 1,500 of them are making six-figure salaries for what? What are you guys doing? Because nobody's watching. We didn't get out of that. The election, Eastern Canada said, no, we love the Liberals. We're going to keep them. In the Western Standard, there's a recent story from Jaime Rubenstein on that with the First Nations, and kind of bouncing back to that one again. It starts out with his column saying, if you want to understand who's benefited the most from Canada's residential school reckoning, look not to the survivors, but the lawyers, the consultants in the Indian industry. And the numbers, the final bill for just the latest, because it never gets settled, right? These guys love keeping on that hamster wheel of settlements. $3.23 billion. And it's still growing. It's still going. And guess what? Let's look at that. What was it? 150,000 kids attended the residential schools over the course of 100 and some years. Yet you listen to the interviews and everything, because everybody can self-identify. And guess what? Every First Nations person you talk to says they had an uncle who went to a residential school and they deserve compensation, and they've all gotten it. But it's not enough. They need more and more and more. It's an industry unto itself. And is it making anything better? That's a lot of what I did with the video. That's what I go on with my rants. If it was working to make things better, I wouldn't be as upset. But it isn't working. The housing is still atrocious. Their health is still atrocious. I mean, the statistic I bring up most often on that is that one that came up in Alberta, where First Nations men die on average 19 years younger than your average person. This should make international news. That's a quarter of a person's life gone on average. and you're trying to pretend and tell me the system is working. Decades of pouring money in, of platitudes, of self-government, all these programs, and it's getting worse. They're dying younger. They're living in squalor. That's why they got so upset when I showed the imagery of those houses, because that reserve got more than even the other ones got. The crime is through the roof. Their education levels are atrociously low. Where's the end? Who can point at this and say it's working and that that this path is reasonable? It's not. So somebody's got to call it out. And we do. I enjoy calling it out. But all right, well, I'm going to get on to somebody else I see here in the lobby there. He enjoys calling things out and how they are as well. And that's Dan McTeague, the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy midsummer days to you here, Cory, and lots to talk about.
Yes, there certainly is. Yeah, you guys have got some hot weather going on out there. We're just finally warming up. So take it as it comes.
Let's have a tax so I can bring down the temperature a few degrees. Why not? Eh?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I thought maybe that's what it is. We lost the carbon tax, so now we don't have uniformity in weather anymore.
There you go.
So, there's so much to cover. I guess what I kind of want to speak of from our view, though, and this is kind of in your ballpark. We're just hearing a lot of talk from Carney. He speaks the right language. He's saying we're going to get this done. We're going to get a utility corridor. We're going to diversify our markets. But is any of that realistic? Because I'm just seeing that he seems to be throwing it out there, but backing it off as soon as any opposition sort of rises up against it.
Well, there's conditionality to everything he's doing. You know, if you want a pipeline, you have to have consensus, which we're not going to get. If you want a pipeline, you have to decarbonize. If you want a pipeline, someone else is going to try to pay for it. If you want a pipeline, we built one. It's great. It's wonderful things. It's doing great things, except it cost us $50 billion thanks to BC and the other miscreants who spent a lot of time trying to block a pipeline that had the signature of the Canadian government on it, which isn't worth its weight in gold, which is discouraging investments. Look, I think it's come down to a very simple thing. This September, to use an old Shakespearean, the play's the thing where we'll catch the king. He's got to come out and show what he is, really, once and for all. Because we have the Mark Carney that is against fossil fuels, against hydrocarbons, against the very thing that maintains our standard of living in this country, like it or not. And by the way, I'm from Toronto. I'm not from the West. So I know what of I speak. And so I think we're going to have to wait to see what Mr. Carney is prepared to do. Is he old Mark Carney, or is somehow has he reinvented himself? I doubt it.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of it, I guess, kind of showed. He's still making the ban of combustion engine vehicles a hill to die on. That recently came up. Within a year, there's going to be a 20% sales bar that they have to hit. It's just insane. Telling private businesses this is what you have to sell and how much of it, or there's going to be consequences.
When Trump got elected, everybody's worried about tariffs. I was more worried about the EV mandate out the door, which meant my province had spent a lot of money along with the federal government and basically wet the pole with respects to a lot of money we didn't have to build things that no one wants, that can't afford, and the United States isn't going to buy. Why do I know that? Cory, before I was a member of Parliament back in 1993, I served media relations for a tiny little company. Back then it was number 5 in Canada. Now it's number 1, Toyota, the largest exporter of vehicles into the United States. They didn't go for the grift. They didn't go for the flavor of the day with EVs. They know that for some people, over-glorified golf carts are a cool thing to have, and maybe they're fun and they're computers on wheels. But for practical reasons, and for a cold country like Canada, they don't work. And now we don't have a market in the United States in which to sell batteries and auto parts, much less manufactured auto parts. And here in Ontario, our number 1 sector is the auto sector, and it's now imperiled. So thanks, Doug, to Doug Ford and his, kissing up to the federal Liberals on this stupid EV mandate, which is really a recipe for disaster for the country and for the province. And, it's not lost, I think, on people at Western Canada. Canola farmers and others have had to take enormous hits in terms of tariffs by China because we're not allowing them to bring in their cheaper made. And they've had a 15-year advantage in building EVs. They know that they can't beat us in terms of internal combustion engines, which is where we ought to be going, which is where the consumer is going in this country, unless they can have EVs shoved down their throats.
Well, and that's where we do get a bit worried out here in the West. Honestly, as much as we're having some regional issues, and I like to take my shots at the voting patterns of Central Canada, I don't want their economy to crater, because the more Central Canada's economy craters, the more Carney dips into the West's resources to try and pay the bills. I mean, we all do better if our industries are doing well where they are. And it just looks like he's taking a stick to the automotive sector out there. I mean, it could be catastrophic.
It will be catastrophic, and they will leave. Toyota, again, being the number one, maker of vehicles, isn't really worrying too much about EVs. Didn't want to go for the grift, and now we have the mayors of various cities across Canada. Auto city mayors now writing a letter to the Prime Minister and to his ministers saying the EV mandates are going to kill our cities. They're going to kill our industry. So if the Liberals want to ignore that, that's fine. They did so with carbon taxes. They've done so with the emissions caps and a bunch of other things. There's a cost to being foolish and trendy, and that's going to cost people real jobs. And so, maybe Mark Carney thinks it's cool to go, dip into and make the country put the country further in debt. But I don't think bond rating agencies are going to put up with that nonsense much longer. I think we're going to see a significant credit downgrade, the likes of which is going to affect even the Tony types in downtown parts of this world when they have to renew their mortgages at much higher rates rather than falling down, which many had expected and hoped for.
Well, and people should realize as well then, they don't necessarily watch those sorts of things. When we get those credit downgrades, what the impact is our national debt suddenly becomes a heck of a lot more expensive. And we are already, I believe the Taxpayers Federation, Franco always likes to put it, we're losing like a hospital a day worth of money right now on interest payments, essentially, or the interest alone on our national debt is more than the transfers for healthcare going to every province. And if we get our credit downgraded, that's only going to become worse.
Oh, I know. And if we don't start selling our products to the rest of the world, because we spent 10 years shutting down the infrastructure that would get our most important and valued 9 to 15% of your GDP, oil and gas. So we can't get those to the market. We're done. Instead, we can send it to the United States, sell it for $3 a million cubic feet, and then they turn around, LNG it for $15-16. No wonder Trump made a big deal, but he's doing it on the backs of Canadian resources. I suspect that Canadians are really starting to smarten up finally. They are starting to realize that you have to build pipelines in order to sustain your standard of living. Because you know what? The Germanys, the South Koreas, the Japans, the Greece, take your pick, Latvia, Lithuania, are not coming to Canada for our AI or for our vehicles. They're coming here for our oil and gas. And we're not prepared to give to them. They will go somewhere else. In the meantime, you and I and our children are going to have to be faced, and possibly grandchildren, with debts we will never be able to repay. And why is that a concern? In 1997, a young buck MP, Dan McTeague, decided to write a report on gasoline pricing in Canada. The two people who want to know what the hell was going on, Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin, they both pulled me aside and said, please do not make this about the upstream, about the oil and gas sector, which of course wasn't. It was to deal with the problems at the retail level and at the refinery level. And I asked them why. Simply because we were going to go from 1 million to 2 million barrels production and export per day, which would get us out of the national debt that we had found ourselves back in the 1990s. So make no mistake, we want to get out of this morass. We're going to sell more oil, more gas. Doesn't matter what Mark Carney thinks or all the conditions he puts on it. He's got a choice. Either he gets involved in doing a bit of the fishing, or cut bait. As my grandfather used to say, do your stuff or get off the pot.
Yeah, well, and as you said, too, I hope so. You're saying, Canadians seem to be waking up or realizing it or figuring it out. It seems when people's butts get kicked, reality kind of jumps in there, and it's going to happen pretty soon. But he's going to have to take a dramatic course then. It doesn't matter if Canadians are ready to go. We showed most Canadians already support pipelines. It's that ideological leadership that has to turn around and say, okay, we're going to put our foot down, exercise our constitutional authority, and get this done. And he's showing no indication yet, anyways, that he's willing to do that.
Well, he sold people the belief he could actually stand up to Donald Trump. In 36 hours, we're going to find out just how hollow a promise and commitment that was. But he doesn't have much of a choice. Look, I'm in downtown Toronto right now. There's something called the CNE, Canadian National Exhibition. It's been going on for 160 years or something. There were 4,000 jobs for part-time for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. 55,000 people showed up for 4,000 jobs. That's how desperate the situation has become in this country. Anybody who's still trendy and cool wants to deny and thinks it's all about climate and that we can spend without consequence and give grift and money to every Tom, Dick, and Harry foundation organization, green group out there, and someone looking for more money to mooch. The game is over. The cupboards are bare. and we now have to fish or cut bait, as I said earlier. Either you sell more oil, get it to market pronto, or you falter as a nation financially.
Yeah, well, and beyond that, I mean, kind of pivoting back to the domestic markets for our automotive sectors. Speaking, of giving a chill to investment or wanting to expand, when we've got essentially a ban on conventional vehicles coming 10 years away now, it's not that long.
Yeah.
Let's just say for whatever reason, everybody in Canada said, yes, you know what, I want to go with it. I'm going to buy an electric car. The problem is we also don't have the national infrastructure to do that. We don't have the generating capability. We don't have the transmission capability. We don't have the household capability. Where is this going to come from?
It's not going to come, and it's not going to come in time. But I can tell you, on January 1st, car dealers in every community across this country are going to be worried that if one of every 5 cars they sell isn't EV, they're going to get dinged with a $20,000 per unit tax. So the Liberals are going to tax the daylights out of car dealers. So if you're a car salesman, you think this is kind of cool and nice, you know full well at the back of your lot are a lot of EVs that are not selling, because people won't buy them unless they get subsidies. They won't build infrastructure unless they get subsidies. They won't even build them unless they get subsidies. This makes no sense whatsoever, including economics. But from another perspective, if we think we have the money to go spend on trinkets that a few handful of people in downtown parts of this country think is cool, or that in February and March these things work out well, I always say, take your iPhone, take your smartphone, put it out in the middle of winter in Alberta or Northern Ontario, see how long the battery lasts in those kind of conditions. Same thing for the technology that's there. We can wish all the wonderful things we want about electric vehicles. They're impractical, they're unreliable, and unfortunately, they're too expensive. And for a lot of car dealers and Canadians, the harsh reality begins in just a few months. And if we don't get our act around suspending this EV mandate, there's going to be hell to pay. And we're going to make a bad situation economically in this country a lot worse. So I'm a car dealer. I'd be very worried. The first thing I'd be, if I could, I'd be on the phone to every Liberal MP I could get my hands on and tell them to end the madness now.
Well, I can imagine and hope some are quietly calling and asking him to end that. But assuming it still goes ahead and comes in, do you think there could be a legal recourse? I mean, this is a government action that's going to drive dealerships out of business. I mean, it's put them into a corner.
Yeah.
Could this go to the courts?
It could. It probably will. And it's likely to possibly even trigger what could be an election, although I don't think the Bloc really cares. But if there's no money to pay for these things and you're going to penalize dealers for not meeting your Tony commitment, it goes to 100% by 2035. That means every year it goes up by 10%. How much are you going to beat car dealers who are really trying to struggle to make ends meet? How are you going to tell an automotive industry that could very well pack up its bags and decide to go to the United States under the swan song of President Trump of giving them incentives to be here and no tariffs? Wait till we see in 1 year from now the renegotiation of the USMCA. I'm not going to call it CUSMA because I think that's kind of trendy and Tony and people like to have that version, but wait till this happens. If you think tariffs are bad, you think vehicle EV mandates ending in the United States are bad, wait till we have to go through renegotiation. If only Canada had not stopped building pipelines and getting our oil to other countries around this world, we wouldn't be in this position. And make no mistake, Canadians voted to weaken their economy and to make Donald Trump that much more of an opportunist.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no weaker position you could put yourself in as a vendor of anything than to have yourself when you really only have one customer. You are over a barrel. And we've been screaming that from the rooftops for 20 years now. Now we're seeing the consequence of it when it's a negotiation between the strong and the weak. And we're on the weak side and we can't change that overnight.
Yeah. And Cory, I mean, I look at this every day. Gas prices are going to go up everywhere across the country. Retailers are going to put back their retail margins on this for the long weekend. But you know what? Because of the weak Canadian dollar, we're not selling any oil. We're not selling gas that we used to. And there's no one investing in the country to buy housing and create the bubble we have. You and I are actually paying an extra 24 cents a liter on every 24 cents on every liter of price of gasoline. That is the biggest tax we have, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we're not selling to the world that which the world wants. They're not coming to us to talk about our hydrogen. They're not coming to us to talk about our AI. They're coming here because they need our oil and gas because they don't have it, and we do it with the best damn specs in the world. And for us to say no, or to navel gaze, or to dither like Mark Carney is doing, we're going to start calling him Mr. Dither soon. I think it's pretty clear where this country is going to wind up, and we're going to see this in September. He either really has to fish or cut bait. As I said earlier, he's got to get his act together and he's got to make a decision, including a budget, which, by the way, will demonstrate to everybody just how deep and protracted this economic malaise is because of how we voted and the people we put in power.
Well, that's a pretty bleak picture, but I didn't bring you on to give us all, sunshine and lollipops. We just need that reality check if we're going to try and head this off a little bit. So, we've run out of time. I know there's a lot more things we could have gone on about, but I love having you on. As I said, it harkens me back to when I still had my beefs with Liberals to a degree, but there was a lot of common sense still within that party, but it's long fled. And you still at least apply that out there. So before I let you go, where could people find your organization and where what you're up to, Dan?
Thanks, Cory. AffordableEnergy.ca. Look at the work that we're doing. Join us, support us, and of course, get on the bandwagon and get more pipelines built, get rid of these EV mandates, and above all, nix net zero. It's time to get rid of that thing. That's what's causing all these problems. It's very bad for Canada. It's time for it to go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much again, Dan, and I hope we get to talk again soon.
Take care, Cory.
Great, thanks. So that was Dan McTeague, and as you can hear, he doesn't beat around the bush, and he knows of what he speaks, all things energy. So get out there, check that out, subscribe, support, do those things. We need those voices. We're heading down a drain, guys, and it's a tough outlook, but still, the sooner we try to work on heading it off, the better. Okay, well, that's the time I've got for today, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, putting up with my ill humor, and be sure to tune in tonight. The pipeline will be on. We got another good panel talking and breaking down a number of issues. And subscribe and like and do all those good things with those Western Standard channels. This is the way we can bypass that ugly legacy media and get the facts out there. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week at this time again.